King County, Washington, the county that I'm recording this from right now, it has the highest telecom copper wire thefts in the nation, to the point where local officials are like, yeah, we're going to need you guys to keep an eye out for anybody with a big set of clippers because they're coming for your copper wire. It's a real thing. Let's jump into it. Here we go.
Right. A King County sheriff's detective tells me that the utility companies are being victimized by people stealing their copper wire more so here in King County and the Pacific Northwest than anywhere else in the nation. And I'm right here at a spot where the thieves left their evidence behind, the insulation. They stripped off copper wires. In this rural area, there are no security cameras, but a camera did catch a thief in the act in a nearby neighborhood. Caught on camera cutting copper-filled telecom wire. The thief runs after the loud bang to remain undetected.
And then he comes back at some point to start to try and cut it and gets interrupted again. So sometimes they'll steal this wire over days.
They don't want to get caught. Plus, Detective Earl Surratt tells me those wires are heavy and they need a lot of it to get any money for it.
What they do is they take thousands and thousands of feet of this. They strip this outer layer of insulation off.
Once they have a truckload, they sell it to a recycler.
For example, if it was given to them like this, they would probably get about 30 cents a pound for it. Just as a rough number, not the current, rates of that changes. But if it's bare copper, they get example like maybe $1 a pound.
When thieves hit the Cumberland area of southeast King County, Detective Surratt tells me people there lost cell service for months. More than just an inconvenience, these thefts cost companies millions.
Like Lumen, for example, told us last year they lost over $1 million.
Together, we work is connected and safe.
In need of help from the public catching these thieves, detectives are now doing public service announcements.
See someone damaging poles or lines or have information about recent incidents, please report them.
And Detective Surratt tells me they are working on getting a search warrant right now for the man seen in that surveillance video I showed you. But he wants people to know the vast majority of the cases that they do solve are the direct result of the public just giving them information, calling in something that they see suspicious. Live in Southeast King County, Denise Whitaker, Como News.
If you need even just more content than you're already getting on YouTube, check out reasonabletv.com. We got a storyline like this one. Judge gunned down by the sheriff, ran the courthouse like a brothel in sextortion scheme. Sextortion scheme went sideways. Got the judge, you got the sheriff, you got young ladies that are trying to work their way out of charges. Got some wild, wild stuff in rural Kentucky. We talked about it. How can you watch that? Check out reasonabletv.com. It's going to cost you $3.99 a month. Super cheap. You get all that great content that I know you need to watch. Thanks in advance. Why is King County such a hotbed for copper wire theft? Well, because we're a very progressive county. We have progressive local leadership. We have progressive state leadership. I mean, we've got a progressive Seattle City Council. It's gotten a little bit more moderate, but we've just had all this progress going on, which means that, with the progressive progress, drugs are okay. Homelessness is okay. Just live wherever you want. And so that ecosystem, folks need to steal on the daily. They need some sort of income. And so that income stream is going out and clipping wiring from wherever you can find it. Power lines, communication lines, you name it. Just go ahead and strip whatever. Another good example is electric car charging stations. Those get ripped apart all the time because of the copper wiring inside of them. You'll see vacant homes where they've torn into the drywall, tearing out copper wiring, just tearing it out. And like they mentioned, with the wiring that is still sleeved, it's still got the coating on it. That might get you 30 cents a pound, but if you strip that down, you get $1 a pound. Now you might not think, well, that's not that much money. Fentanyl doesn't cost that much anymore. It's just not. Like a buck a dose, oftentimes 50 cents down in Portland, I've seen as low as that. And those prices, they fluctuate pretty greatly depending on how much chemicals, China ships into Mexico, and then how things are going at the southern border. Are the drugs just flowing straight in, or is there a little bit of pushback? And at the moment, there's a little bit of pushback. But any which way, fentanyl is super, super cheap. Heroin has become cheap. Meth has become cheap. The only one that isn't all that cheap, and it's even being cut as well, and what you'll hear is cocaine. Coke has, it gets cut with all the same fentanyl crap because it extends the high and it's super cheap. And you can mix it in, and who's the wiser? Who knows? Hey, that's the good stuff, right? So you've got a situation where super affordable, and these folks can just run around with their saw. You saw that little electric saw that he was using to cut, and he used the same ones to, cut off people's catalytic converters. Same drill. And those are the same folks. Doesn't take a lot of work for them to get a few bucks together, and then they can just, score a heavy amount of drugs and go on about their day for the next day or whatever. And be fat, dumb, and happy, right? And so the rest of us sit back going, whoa, they're cutting telecommunication lines. How is that happening? Well, because we've got a situation in King County where, we're not really, prosecuting. We're not really incarcerating. We're not really going after these kind of thefts. And here in Seattle in particular, we defunded the police and you don't have enough cops to go around. So where a lot of this activity happens, it's like, all right, so somebody cut down some copper line from telecommunications company. Is anybody injured? No. Okay. Nobody's injured. All right. Were there any injuries involved in the actual crime itself? No. Oh, no, there weren't. Okay. Yeah. We'll send somebody out when we can. And so, nothing happens. So these criminals know that they're going to get away with this. Do they get popped? Every now and then. But if they got popped with long sentences and, they were actually forced to do some real time, this wouldn't be as much of a thing, would it? Because it's not worth it to go to prison over stealing a few bucks worth of copper line. But that's just not the case. They're not getting busted because this is happening all day long. And that's what you get when you live in a liberal county like King County. Everybody else is just kind of doing their thing. They're just, it's the greatest thing ever. And the rest of us are like, hey, wait a minute. We're not finding this kind of activity elsewhere to the same extent. This kind of thing happens all over because it's an easy crime to do. You see it in LA the most at the electric car stations, just torn to shreds, torn apart. So bad. Yeah, here's another article. Pacific Northwest leads the nation in infrastructure vandalism. Now, King County in particular leads, we've got a lot of national stuff going on. We've got some of the highest gas prices. We've got some of the highest housing prices, some of the highest food costs. We've got some of the highest energy costs. The list just goes on and on. Seattle has the highest gross domestic product growth rate in the United States at like 6.4%. You got Houston and somewhere in North Carolina, and these are cities above like 1 million people. Got some of the highest gross domestic product growth going on. So you got a lot of high-tech jobs. You got a lot of stuff happening. But because you've got liberal leadership, we've had, Governor Jay Inslee for years and years and years. And look how that's worked out. Homelessness, drugs, overdose, expensive gasoline. Yeah. People ripping off copper like there's no tomorrow above and beyond anywhere else in the country. That's what you get. That's what you get when you sign up for liberal leadership in a state like Washington. And I swear the rest of the residents are just like, why is this happening? Oh, never mind. Doesn't really impact us. Screw it. Let's move on. And that's what they do. They just totally ignore it. And yet, if you've gone to other states and you've spent time in other states like I, do, You don't have that kind of thing going on. Because if you stole a bunch of copper line and a whole bunch of telecommunications went down, you'd go to prison. You'd go to jail. We've got so many other criminal elements going on here in King County. That's just way down on the totem pole of priority, right? Copper wire theft in our state is rampant. 1/4 of the thefts in North America take place in Oregon and Washington. It's a serious problem. It's downing telecommunications and even endangering lives. In Maple Valley, Rick Geist's phone service was cut off, not by his provider, CenturyLink, but rather by thieves who cut the cable to sell at local scrapyards for pennies on the dollar. And they started cutting my fence, which really kind of got me mad, said Rick. Get your fence cut. All right. In addition to cutting Rick's fence, the thieves cut about a football field's length worth of cable. Football field's length. Man. Rural areas of Paris and South King counties are plagued with vandals climbing power poles for the copper inside telephone wires. Why wouldn't we have this going on? That's the real question, right? Why wouldn't we have this going on? This is progress. This is what's known as progressive. This is progress. This is what that progress looks like. How's that working out? Not all that great. Not all that great. Other people need that landline, talking about ways people are being impacted. Other people need that landline because they have medical equipment that's attached to that telephone line. They have a heart monitor or whatever else that they're using and can't access the system because the line is not working. So you've got some real situations. It's just not people, I want to talk to my mom. Where's my mom? I need to get my mom on the phone. You've got some real considerations, things going on with people's lives that literally impact whether they live or die. And, there's just so much going on in King County that, storyline like this gets a little bit of a tick and people go, oh, that's not good. That's terrible. Well, as long as it doesn't happen to my power line, as long as it doesn't happen to my comms line, I'm not going to worry about it. It's all good. That just happened to some other poor sucker. Rick believes the culprits lived near his property. Law enforcement has identified suspects and are working to bring them to justice. Most of these thieves do it for drug money, period. Because here in King County, we have fostered an environment of, hey, drugs are good. We like drugs. We do a lot of drugs. We're going to allow you to do a lot of drugs. We're going to go down that road of harm reduction, which is, hey, we want you to do all the drugs you can, but we don't want you to get hepatitis C. We don't want you to, get some kind of infection in your vein. So we're just going to give you everything but the drugs to do it. We're going to give you clean needles. And if those veins start to dry up, if you just can't use those veins anymore, we're going to give you a booty bump kit. That way you can put those drugs in where the sun don't shine. You bypass that gastrointestinal tract, right? Just get really, really high, putting some drugs up your backside. Yeah, that is literally something that taxpayers' dollars pay for here in King County, in Seattle. Yeah, you got that going on. I mean, that's progressive leadership thinking, right? It's all about harm reduction, which is all harm and no reduction. It's handing out the needle. Here's a needle. You could do drugs. So in that environment, you've created a whole bunch of people that live homeless, that live wherever, that just do all the drugs that they want because now they're super cheap. Super, super cheap. And that's what they're doing. So they go out and they steal a few pounds worth of copper, whatever. They get enough together, sell it, and they go buy their drugs and do their drugs. Telephone cable is full of copper wire. Right now, copper is the highest it's been for a year. Scrap metal yards buy it at about $1 to $1.50 a pound. For a 40-pound chunk of wire, thieves are getting about $20 to $30. So I've seen, anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000 worth of damage routinely done on average for $20 to $30 of, wholesaled wire, depending on where they go. To fuel a drug habit with copper wire, vandals have to do a lot of damage to the infrastructure, and that is bad news for CenturyLink customers. It's horrible. Not only the companies themselves, but the actual customers themselves, in addition to. So here's a guy that heads up vandalism and anti-theft efforts at Lumen. Yeah, we had a cut in Bremerton last week. It's over west of downtown Seattle, across the water. Last week, they took down the airport at Bremerton. That's nice. What happened? Were you able to land? Nope. Some tweaker cut down telecom line for $20 to get his next fix of fentanyl or meth, and couldn't land. Just no telecom at the airport. It also disrupted services at Mission Creek Correctional, the prison. It's a prison. Took down their services. I mean, it doesn't get more serious than that. Yeah, how'd it go at prison today? Oh, not good. It didn't have any security. Somebody whacked the power line. Oh, that's not good. Lumen's had 69 cases of line cutting since the first of the year in Washington State. That's 36% of the cases in North America. In North America, right here, because we got a bunch of whacked out drug addicts that know the world is their oyster. They're going to get away with everything. So why wouldn't they do this? And even if they get popped, even if they get busted, they're not going to do any time. Did you kill anybody? No. Do you promise you're not going to do it again in the future? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I am on the straight and narrow. I am not stealing any more wire from the public to buy my drugs ever, ever, ever again. Guy's just lying through his teeth. He's just telling the judge whatever. But these judges, they don't want to put anybody in jail because, racism. So crazy. Put a magnetic sign on their vehicle that says, Joe's Cable Service. They put on a hard hat, they put on a vest, put on a cone in the road, and they go climb the pole and start cutting cable. You know what? I just lived through the bomb cyclone storm. We had down power lines everywhere. It was scary. I mean, it's like, you don't really know if those bad boys are live or not. You know what I mean? You might have power out from everywhere, but that power is wild stuff. Somebody has a generator going, whatever. Got a live connection still. That may not end up well for you. So I would not want to be this guy. They put a cone in the road and they go climb the pole and start cutting cable. Hard pass. No, I'm going to leave that to the experts, right? Especially for like $20 or $30. We caught them Christmas morning out here in my driveway, said Rick, who took matters into his own hands by tracking and helping apprehend thieves on his property. Police did a great job. I mean, we worked this for almost 3 weeks. And some of what you got going on in King County is just that we've got so many other crimes being committed. And we don't really have a justice system that wants to hold anybody accountable because, accountability is just wildly overrated. So we're just not doing that. In the meantime, we've got the highest rates of having cable, of having telecoms cut in the United States. We've got that, gross domestic growth going on, product going on. But then we've also got this other craziness because there's zero accountability within the system because it's based off of progressive politics. We just had a race for governor. Our Republican, Dave Reichert, he just got killed. He got crushed because this is Democrat land. So keep voting blue. I'm sure it's going to work out at some point down the road. Yeah. It shocks me that people keep voting the same way and then wonder, hey, why isn't this storyline getting better? Why is this storyline actually getting worse? Well, because of all the stuff we talked about on this podcast, right? And we continue to talk about. These are the storylines that people aren't willing to look at. It's like Gavin Newsom down in California. We're just going to keep ratcheting down the supply of gasoline and this is going to make gas cheaper. And you're like, but wait a minute. California has the highest gas prices, maybe outside of Washington State. We're always a close second. And Hawaii, where you got to ship everything in by, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, thousands of miles. But anyway, keep voting that direction. I'm sure it'll work out for you. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.